Good evening, everyone. This is BIO-141 AMP1 Exam 3 Review, Fall 2020. It's November 21st, Saturday, around 11 p.m. that I'm recording this. It's for our upcoming exam, which will be posted, which I'm going to post in a couple of hours as soon as I finish this video and upload it to YouTube. I will post the exam, which is going to be, let's say, 3 hours. It's going to be about 1 or 2 a.m. Sunday, November 22nd, that the exam will be posted. That doesn't mean that as soon as the exam is posted that you have to attempt the exam and take the exam. I have extended the due date for our exam to after Thanksgiving, Monday, November 30th at 11:59 p.m. So from tomorrow, which will be Sunday, until Monday, November 30th, 11:59 p.m., you have literally about 8 days to study for this exam. Give it or take 7 days, and you can take it on Monday. It's not going to be a difficult exam. It's actually one of the shortest exams because we are covering a section in Bio AMP1 that you will start out with in AMP2. So we are going to be starting with week 11. This exam is going to be 30 questions, and I'm going to go over the breakdown of the questions. There are not going to be any questions from week 10, which is the special senses. I'm going to save week 10 and week 15. That's the week after Thanksgiving. Week 15 which is endocrine system, for the final exam. So this exam, which is exam 3, is going to be from week 11, 12, and 13. Week 11 was blood, week 12 was heart, and week 13 was blood vessels. Now, let me tell you about these 3 weeks of cardiovascular system that we have covered. You will cover the cardiovascular system. You will have a more in-depth coverage of it when you get to AMP2. So one thing about my AMP1 is that you will be very well prepared when you start out AMP2 for the first few weeks, because they're going to go over exact same things that we have already learned through the last weeks of AMP1, because we went over the nervous system pretty quick, and that gave us enough time to start some sections of the beginning parts of AMP2, which is the cardiovascular system. And when you start AMP2 in the spring term, it's going to start out with cardiovascular system. So your advantage would be that you're going to be familiar with a lot of the physiology and anatomy of it. So the first couple of weeks is going to be really easy for you as far as AMP2 goes, because you're going to see a lot of similarities and a lot of the concepts that we are going through right now and we have gone through, and the notes that you have. So it's going to be easier on you than some of the other students who are in other AMP1 classes. So there are going to be 10 questions from the blood system. The first 10 questions are from blood. and then 10 questions from heart and 10 questions from blood vessels. So there are a total of 30 questions. The 28 questions are multiple choice. There is one question that's multiple answers, so select, it's gonna have more than one choice. So more than one answer can be true, A, B, C, D. It can be A, B, C, it can be A, B, C, D, it can be A, it can be A, C, D. So it's a multiple answer question. And so that's 29 total. And then another question is gonna be a matching question, which is very short matching. It's only 3 parts that you're going to be matching. The matching is on blood vessels actually, and that's going to total up to 30 questions. They are all worth the same amount, about 4 point. Each question is worth 4.34. No, 4.33 points. The first question is worth 4.43 points, so it can all add up to 130 points. Did I say that correct? I don't think so. Yes, 4.34 points. And then towards the end, this time, there is going to be a bonus question. You will see an essay bonus question. It's going to be a detailed essay bonus questions. When you see the points on it, it's going to say 0. And however, with the bonus question with Canvas, it won't let me add a bonus question. So the question that I add, it says bonus question. However, it would say 0 points. The best answer or complete answer that's very thorough and correct and has answered the question in detail and has answered every part of the essay question will get 10 points. So the maximum points that you can get on the bonus question is 10 points. As I say, it's an essay question. However, you can get 8 points, you can get 4 points, you can get 5 points, depending on your answer. So this time there is not going to be an exam 1 extra credit assignment or exam 2 extra credit assignment, a separate extra credit assignment where you would have unlimited time to complete it, and then I would add it in to your lecture exam. It's all integrated together, where after the 30 questions, you will see the bonus question right towards the end. And as I said, you can earn up to 10 points. It will be manually graded when you submit your exam. I will manually grade it. And once I manually grade it, you will see your exam score. However, that score will not be your final score again, because depending on how everyone else does, and by the time that I get all the exam results in, I'll usually sit down and I go over, I look at the questions. Sometimes if it was a bad question and a lot of students got it wrong, I throw the question out. I look at the average, I look at the median mode, I look at a lot of the different statistics and decide on if I need to adjust the grade, curve the grade, or if the average is okay, then there might not be a need for a curve. I mean, it all depends on y'all's performance. So that's why I have to wait until I get everyone's results in before I do the exam adjustment. So as I said, whenever you decide to take the exam and submit it, I will grade the essay question at the end manually, and then you will see a score. However, that will not be your final exam grade, because again, it might get adjusted accordingly. You might probably get extra points on it if a question gets thrown out or the exam gets curved. Points will be added to your exam grade. I'm gonna give you, I think, 250 minutes, which would be plenty of time to answer the 30 questions and the bonus question. So that's plenty of time for 30 questions and a bonus question. So I think, okay, let's talk a little bit about the final exam, as I said. So the lecture exam 3, this exam that's coming up right now and which I'm about to do the review for, as I said, will be due Monday, November 30th. That week of Monday, November 30th is gonna be the week after Thanksgiving. It's gonna be our week 15. We're gonna start the endocrine system, and the day after Monday, November 30th, December 1st, I'm gonna post lab exam 2, which is gonna cover labs. It's cumulative, however, it only covers labs 7 through 14. Lab 14 is gonna be from week 15. It's gonna be the endocrine system. So the final exam is gonna include the endocrine system and labs from labs 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Lab 7 was, so that's going to be, yes, week 7. So lab exam 2 is going to cover lab materials all the way from week 7 to week 15. Labs, that would be labs 7 to 14. So the endocrine system is not going to have a separate lab quiz. It's going to be included in the lab exam 2. And that will be posted Tuesday, December 1st. The week after is our last week, is the exam week. I'm going to post the final exam. It's going to be posted Monday, December 7th. I'm thinking about if we get caught up with everything else and all the assignments gets turned in on time and we don't have any delays with the exams and all the exams have been submitted, I might post the final exam a little bit earlier, maybe even December 5th or December 5th, yeah, or Saturday. Yeah, that will be Saturday, December 5th. So, and then, as you know, all the homework assignments, all the discussion board assignments are all due December 7th. And any missing assignments for any individuals who has not submitted a quiz or an exam or a lab exam, we have already communicated with one another through email, and definitely email me and I will email you back and we will set up a makeup time for those. So as I said, that's the plan. The final exam will be 15% of it will be the special senses and the endocrine system. So the first 15% of the exam will be a special senses and endocrine system. 75% of the exam, the other 75% of the exam will be nervous system, muscular system, skeletal system, tissues, and cell structure. And then the last 10% will be blood, heart, and blood vessels. So the major emphasis on the final exam, which is cumulative, is going to be the nervous system, the muscular system, and the skeletal system, basically, and tissues. but the majority, when I say 75%, that's a huge chunk. It's going to be mainly nervous, muscular, skeletal. I will send out an email and probably maybe do an exam, video exam review for it for the final exam, maybe not. Haven't decided on that yet, so we'll see how it goes. I've got a lot of good feedbacks on these video exam reviews. That's why I've kept up with them and I've been doing them because you all have emailed me and said that it has been helpful as far as answering the questions and helping you with the exam. Okay, so that was a lot of things, that housekeeping items that we went over. Hopefully you listened to all. So let's go ahead and get us started with our exam review, exam 3 review. I'm going to start out with the first 10 questions are going to be over the blood. And I'm going to refer you to the documents and pages. It's going to be like the last two, very similar to the last two review sessions that we've had. Okay, the first question, I need you to know what hematocrit is. Basically, know the definition of what is hematocrit. And that can be found on page 3 of Blood Lecture Notes, section 14.3. Next one, I need you to be familiar with the composition of the blood, specifically composition of the serum. I would refer you to bottom of page 10 of Blood Supplemental Notes, where it talks about the plasma. So that's one place to read about the composition of plasma, specifically the serum, and what is the composition of the serum. So bottom of page 10 of Blood Supplemental Notes, and also page 1 of Blood Lecture Notes, Objective B. Next question that I have here is basically about hemostasis. I want you to know the mechanism and the steps in hemostasis. For that, I would refer you to page 6 of Blood Lecture Notes, Objective F. It has the steps of hemostasis, and there's a question on that, so that will be very easy. I would recommend, when you're listening to this video that is in progress, you jot this down and make a study guide for yourself from the pages that I'm referring you to. Also, for that question, I would refer you to page 20 of Blood Supplemental Notes, figure 6.5. That also says the same thing about the steps of hemostasis. Next is, of course, a question about, I want you to know the different types of leukocytes or white blood cells, which is the most common one. You need to know the function of each. And for that, I would refer you to page 8 of Blood Lecture Notes, table 14.3. Copy that table, draw it down, write it down, memorize it, copy and paste it, put it on your study guide document that you are making, read it, know it, because that table, there is a question from that table, and it's a very good table in general, just so you can have it as a resource in future. It lists the white blood cells, the types, and function of each. Next one involves a question about clotting pathway. We are not going to go into much detail about clotting pathway. Clotting pathway can be very complex, and it can be another it can be a whole class session on clotting pathway. But for our purposes, I just want you to be familiar with the factors that are involved with clotting pathway. You don't necessarily need to know the whole pathway from extrinsic to intrinsic and all the steps and what happens in each step, but just the main picture and what the final product is or what the final step is, what are the major factors that are involved, thrombin, fibrinogen, prothrombin. So be familiar with those terms and know the final step in clotting, in clotting pathway. You will study more about this if you go to nursing school, pharmacy school, or medical school, because clotting pathway is important. And there is a lot of drugs out there like warfarin, which is Coumadin, Xarelto, and there are other ones too, factor 10 inhibitors. So those are reserved for graduate school or graduate programs that you will be enrolling in if you decide to pursue a career in healthcare field. So for that question, the factors that are involved in clotting pathway, I would refer you to page 7 of blood lecture notes, figure 14.5. Again, jot down that figure, copy paste it, save it, read it, know it, and study it. Also, there is another figure very similar to that figure, which is on page 250 of blood text reading. It's figure 11.7. So the first figure was from page 7 of blood lecture notes, and that's figure 14.5. The next one is figure 11.7. That's on page 250 of blood text reading. Of course, when we talk about blood, we need to talk about anemia. Be familiar with the meaning of anemia, what anemia is, and I would refer you to page 18 of blood supplemental notes. Read the whole page. It's a great read. It's a quick read, a few paragraphs, and just understand the main picture of anemia and what the definition is. Not mainly any question about macrocytic or macrocytic anemia, just the main picture. Also, I need you to know where red blood cells are produced. So you should already know that by now if you have studied the lecture notes and if you've been keeping up with the lectures. Where are red blood cells produced? In bone marrow. For that, I gave you the answer, but you would find that on page 2 of blood lecture notes, objective C. You need to be familiar with components of blood plasma, specifically plasma proteins. Be familiar with components of blood plasma, specifically plasma proteins, components of plasma proteins. For that, I would refer you to page 8 of blood lecture notes, objective H as Henry. Next one is another important concept in blood when we talk about blood, and that is a stimulation or activation of erythropoiesis. What activates erythropoiesis? What stimulates it? Okay, and for that I would refer you to page 4 of blood lecture notes, objectives, sections 14.7 and also section 14.8. So read both sections from page 4 of blood lecture notes that talks about erythropoiesis and erythropoietins and the stimulation of erythropoiesis, activation of erythropoiesis. And as I said, page 4 of blood lecture notes, sections 14.7 and section 14.8. Next, it's an easy one. You need to know and be able to describe erythrocytes or red blood cells, specifically the shape of the red blood cell, the structure of it, components of it, the lifespan of it, what it contains. For that question, I would refer you to page 2 of blood lecture notes, objective C. There is another question which is might be a repeat question from the tissue lecture which we had on week 3, I believe. And that's the major difference between cardiac muscle and skeletal muscle. There is one major difference between them. Specifically, there is one thing that cardiac muscle has that a skeletal muscle does not. And for that, definitely, let me see if I have it. Yes. So you have to go back to tissue lecture notes, which was on week 3. You need to open up that document, tissue lecture notes, go to page 8, table 4.7. And table 4.7 compares the 3 types of muscle tissues. The types, the location, and the structure of each: a smooth, cardiac, and a skeletal. And when you study that table, you will see how cardiac muscle tissue is different than a skeletal and a smooth. There is one specific thing about cardiac muscle tissue that the other ones do not have, and that's intercalated disc. So I just gave you the answer. So always remember, with cardiac tissue, you have intercalated disc that you do not have in any other tissue, and that's how you can tell that's a cardiac tissue. I want you to be okay. Now that was the 10 questions from the blood section. Okay, now we are going to the next 20 questions that are going to be from blood vessels and heart. I want you to be familiar with valves of the heart. The valves of the heart. For that, I would refer you to page 4 of the heart lecture notes, table 15.2. Copy that table, save that table, read that table, study it, know it. You don't have to necessarily memorize it because the exam is open book, but eventually you might want to memorize it because it's not going to be a one-time thing where you can close the book and not see it again. You will see it in AMP2 and in future classes as well. So it's better to understand it and learn it now rather than just reading it and not trying to memorize it and understand it. It's a really good table. As I said, it's very informative. Uh, Table 15.2 on page 4 of the heart lecture notes talks about the different valves of the heart. Other thing I need to tell you about is how some valves and the namings of them can be interchangeable. So when we talk about mitral valve, uh, in the in the table it might say mitral valve, and on the exam question it might say bicuspid valve, and you'll be like, well, uh, I don't know what bicuspid valve is. Well, bicuspid valve is a term that's used interchangeably. It's the same thing as mitral valve, also called bicuspid valve. Same thing with, for example, tricuspid valve is the same thing as right atrioventricular valve. So those terms are used interchangeably. Don't get confused when you see one term somewhere and you see it written in another term somewhere else. Somewhere they say mitral valve, another the question is asking about bicuspid valve. So same thing. Mitral is same as bicuspid. Right atrioventricular valve is same as tricuspid valve. So know that that table is a very good table. There's a question about it, maybe more than one question. So it's a good table. I want you to be able to describe and know what coronary circulation is. What coronary circulation is. That's how basically heart supplies oxygenated blood to itself, okay, through coronary circulation. Okay, that's what coronary circulation is. We have a lot of different circulations. We have pulmonary circuit and other ones as well. So for coronary circulation, I think I just gave you the answer and told you what it is. It's how the heart basically oxygenates itself. For that, I would refer you to page 6 of Heart Lecture Notes, Objective G as George, and also page 4 of Heart Supplemental Notes in the description section, the first paragraph. Okay, page 4 of Heart Supplemental Notes. In the description section, first paragraph talks about coronary circulation. Next one is now pulmonary circulation. I need you to be familiar with pulmonary circulation. It's very important. Pulmonary circulation is basically all the blood vessels that take the oxygenated blood from the right ventricle of the heart to the lungs, and then they return oxygenated blood to the left atrium. And for that, I would refer you to page 5 of Heart Lecture Notes, Objective E. Objective E. One thing about the pulmonary circuit is that, remember, usually we say veins carry blood to the heart, right? And they carry what kind of blood? Oxygenated or deoxygenated? Deoxygenated, exactly. And then we say arteries carry oxygenated blood from the heart to other parts of the body. That's true. There is this exception, however, with the pulmonary circuit, where the pulmonary veins do not carry deoxygenated blood. Pulmonary veins carry oxygenated blood. Actually, pulmonary veins carry the most oxygenated blood, and they carry it from the lungs and to the left atrium, and then it goes to the left ventricle, and then it goes to the rest of the body. Okay. Pulmonary arteries, however, carry deoxygenated blood, not oxygenated blood like other arteries. Pulmonary arteries carry deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle, and they take it to the lungs. So that's the major difference between the pulmonary veins and the rest of the body veins, between pulmonary arteries and rest of the body arteries. That's the one exception, that we cannot say all arteries carry oxygenated blood and all veins carry deoxygenated blood, because it's the opposite in pulmonary circuit. So definitely know that, be familiar with that, be familiar with the circuit. Again, page 5 of Heart lecture notes, objective E. Next, I need you to know the flow chart of the blood flow. So, okay. My computer froze for a second. So, know the blood flow from the heart. And there is a flow chart that's really nice. It's on page 2 of Heart supplemental notes. It's on the bottom of the page. You'll see the flow chart. Again, take a snapshot of it or copy it and paste it in your study guide, or draw it down, write it down. It's very informative, and it's very good, and it's very important as well, and something that you again need to memorize eventually, and need to learn and need to know. The blood flow from the heart, through the heart. Next, you need to be able to compare arteries and veins, know the difference between them as far as the structures of arteries and veins, and be able to compare them. And also, I need you to know the function of capillaries. For that, I would refer you to page 1 of blood vessel lecture notes, objective B, and go to the second page of that same lecture note, blood vessel lecture notes, page 2, table 16.1. That table again is very important. Table 16.1 on page 2 of blood vessels lecture notes, where it actually compares the arteries and the veins, and also capillaries in the cardiovascular system. It compares the vessels in the cardiovascular system. So I would highly encourage you to again copy and paste or save that table for even future references, and make a study guide out of it for this exam. Next, need you to be familiar with the electrical signaling in the heart, or the intrinsic conduction system. For that, I would refer you to page 8 of Heart supplemental notes. The section would be impulse pathway, and the flow chart that you'll see there on that page as well. Because there is the flow chart walks you through the steps of the electrical signaling, how it starts, and what the first step is, second, and how it goes down. So there's a question on that, and that's on page 8 of Heart supplemental notes. On their impulse pathway section, there's a flow chart. Draw down that flow chart, write it down, put it in your study guide notes. Very important to know that flowchart. Also, I would refer you to page 7 of Heart lecture notes, section 15.11. Next is a question about blood pressure. As for blood pressure, I want you to know when we talk about systolic and diastolic, of course, it talks about normal blood pressure range, 130, 120 over 80, what those numbers, but what's most important for you is to know what those numbers mean. Exactly. What is systolic pressure and what is diastolic pressure? I want you to know that systolic pressure is the pressure in the arteries when the heart ventricles are contracting, okay? And the diastolic pressure is basically the pressure when the ventricles are relaxing. That's the definition of systolic pressure and diastolic pressure. Systolic pressure is the pressure in the arteries when the ventricles are contracting, and diastolic pressure is the pressure when the ventricles are relaxing. Okay? For that, I would refer you to page 403 of blood vessel text reading under blood pressure section. Next, I need you to be slightly familiar with electrocardiogram, ECG. I'm not going to ask you anything crazy. I'm not going to give you an ECG and ask you to interpret it and say whether the patient is in AFib. That's something that you would learn in nursing program or medical school or pharmacy school. Where you would be given basically an ECG of a patient, and then you would have to look at the ECG and determine if the patient is in AFib, if it's normal, if it's any sort of arrhythmias. There are different types of arrhythmias, and you would learn those in professional programs. For our purposes, as far as ECG goes, I want you to be familiar with the 3 waves: the P wave, the QRS wave, and the T wave, mainly the definitions, okay? And for that, I would refer you to page 10 of Heart supplemental notes in the description section. Page 10 of Heart supplemental notes, the description section, specifically the QRS wave. Know the definition for that, okay? Then I want you to be familiar with the 3 major peripheral sensory receptors of the heart. The peripheral sensory receptors of the heart. Again, specifically baroreceptors and location of the baroreceptors. For that, I would refer you to page 14 of Heart supplemental notes in the description section, number 3, where it talks about baroreceptors. Also read 1 and 2, and those are the other 2 sensory receptors. But I'm being very specific here about the question that is going to be on baroreceptors. So I'm being very direct and specific about the question. I want you to know next what we mean when we say cardiac output. Know the definition of cardiac output, abbreviated as CO, cardiac output. Know what it means. Know what a stroke volume means, SV, the definition of a stroke volume. Know what is heart rate and the formula where heart rate equals a stroke volume times cardiac output. I'm not going to ask you to calculate anything. I just want you to be familiar with the three definitions of cardiac output: the stroke volume and heart rate, and what they are and what they mean, what we mean when we say the stroke volume. What is a stroke volume? What is cardiac output? I would refer you to page 388 of heart text reading section under the section cardiac output. So read that paragraph under that section, page 388 of the heart text reading section, cardiac output. Last but not least, I want you to be familiar with the hepatic portal system. Just like as I said, we had the circulatory portal system, circulatory system, coronary system, coronary circulation. Now we have the hepatic portal circulation, and then we had the pulmonary circuit as well. For hepatic portal circulation, I would refer you to page 421 of blood vessel text reading under the section that says hepatic portal circulation. Read that section. It's a very short section. It's a very short paragraph that talks about the portal vein, hepatic portal vein, and the other vocabularies and what hepatic portal circulation is. And also page 4 of blood vessel supplemental notes, mid-page of page 4 of blood vessel supplemental notes. There's a section that starts with digestive organs and a spleen. Read that paragraph. Talks about the hepatic portal circulation there too. And that should do it for the questions. All I can tell you about the essay question is that for you to get the 10 points, you have to answer the question and what it's asking and be very specific because I'm going to be looking for specific terms to see if you have included them and not the length. I mean, you can write one page, but if you don't mention the specific that I have asked for, you won't get the credit. And it's on the, I would say, it's about the heart circulation. Okay, that's the more about the blood vessels and the circulation through the heart. If you have any questions, email me. I hope definitely watch the video. If you need to go back and watch it again and write down the pages and the sections and the tables that I referred you to, write them down. Once you have finished with this video and you have made your study guide and you have read through the pages that I referred you to, read through the tables that I referred you to, and you feel comfortable taking the exam, you can attempt taking the exam whenever you want to. But the exam deadline is not until Monday, November 30th at 11:59 p.m. So I don't want you to feel pressured through the Thanksgiving holiday. I want you to have a nice Thanksgiving with your family. But they say because of the COVID not to have gatherings, I guess. So have a nice Thanksgiving by yourself and not with family members because we can't have family gatherings. Or that's what the recommendations are. But I don't want you to feel pressured or stressed out about this exam during your Thanksgiving break. So either attempt it before then, or like Sunday or even Monday after you have watched the video. It's all up to you. You won't be able to see the correct answers. However, you will be able to see what questions you did get wrong, and you would have to give me time to grade the bonus question. I think for you to see the total grade, and then again, I have to wait for everyone to submit their exams. And once everyone has submitted their exam, then I'll do the evaluations and determine if the exam grade needs to be curved, and then I will adjust your grade even further. So you will have a basic understanding of what your grade is going to be around right after you submit your exam, and give me time to grade your essay question or the bonus question. If you decide to attempt the bonus question, you don't necessarily have to do the bonus question. That's totally up to you. If you don't want the extra 10 points, feel free to just answer the first 30 questions, and don't even bother with the bonus question. But bonus question is 10 points itself. It can be up to 10 points. Of course, that's for the perfect answer, but at least maybe you can earn 5 points. So attempt it, especially when you have 250 minutes. You're gonna have plenty of time. One other thing is the reason that you won't be able to see the correct answers is because this exam has to be, and all exams usually, all lecture exams and all lab exams, because they are timed, they have to be done in one attempt, and it's not something that you can go back to, like how we do the lab quizzes and homework assignments, where you can go back to the next day and answer the rest of the questions. Here, once you click on to open the exam, you have to finish it in one setting, or you have to finish it by that 20 to 250 minute time frame. A lot of you finish it sooner than that, but it has to be done in one setting. So if something happens, let's say your power goes out, or you're at a Starbucks and your data runs out, your 5 gig Verizon data runs out, and now you don't have internet, and you were in the middle of the exam. Guess what? The exam will keep going, and the time will pass, and you might get stuck in traffic, and you're trying to get home to finish up the exam, and the 250 minutes has passed, and the exam has submitted itself. So, and you have only answered one question. In that case, if I allow everyone to see the exam results immediately, you would be able to see the correct answer for the unanswered questions. So you won't be able to reattempt the exam. That's why, just because of if that happens, if the power goes out, or if something happens with the internet connection, and you haven't finished the exam. Sometimes it happens, it rarely happens, but I've had this happen in the past to some students, and so that's why I have the settings put in a way where you can see the questions that you've gotten wrong, but you won't be able to see the correct answers. I will release the correct answers once everyone has turned in their exam. So again, any questions, please email me. Have a great Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving ahead of time. Hope you're all. It's been a great semester. It went by very quick. It was very unfortunate that we didn't get a chance to be in a classroom setting and to be in a lab setting, so we could study the mannequins. We could study this because anatomy and physiology is something that's really difficult when we are doing it online, as compared to when we are in the lab and you can see the structure first-handedly, rather than just a picture or a black and white picture, and some of the image qualities, it's difficult to find a good image quality that's colored. So we do run into issues, and I do apologize for all that. But it's COVID, and we all have to work around with it. Uh, as I said, it has been a great semester. You all have been wonderful and great. Everyone has done a great job so far. Keep up the good work, and we will get through these last few weeks easily. And I hope you all do great. And, I'm still deciding on whether to make a lab or to make a final exam video or final exam review video or not. Uh, Maybe I can get some feedback on it. If you all want me to, let me know, and I can do that. Or maybe I can do a manuscript, a study guide, or or just a rough draft of how many questions there are going to be, how many questions from each section, because the questions are not going to be the same questions. I'm going to use new questions. Of course, I'll never reuse a question. For final exams or for my cumulative exams, uh, there are brand new set of questions, even though it's the same concept, but brand new set of questions. I don't reuse questions. So that's all I have for you. Happy studying, happy Thanksgiving. Have a wonderful evening, morning, day. Uh, Thank you.